Okay, shall I begin?
Let's wait for 2 minutes. I think the participants are still joining.
Okay.
Rahul?
Yes, I think it's good to go now. We already have 60 participants.
They will join us. They will join us.
Yes.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Good evening, respected guests and their audience. On behalf of the ELTAI Pune chapter, I would like to begin by rendering warm greetings to have been asked to introduce the Pune chapter of the English Language Teachers Association of India, ELTAI. Today's panel discussion is on a special occasion. India will celebrate its 75th Independence Day on August 15, 2022. Let us truly celebrate this momentous occasion by playing our part to make India a prosperous, peaceful, and powerful nation that we all want it to be. ELTAI was founded by the late Padma Shri S. Natarajan, a noted educationist. ELTAI completed 50 years in 2019. Incidentally, in the same year, ELTAI Pune chapter was inaugurated under the leadership of Professor Z. N. Patil. Professor Sridhar Gokhale and Professor Prashant Sinha are the patrons of the chapter. It was a humble beginning with only a few teachers, but now our chapter has more than 240 members. It is one of the fastest growing and the most active chapters in India. It has grown both in numerical strength and in popularity through sustained professional development activities and initiatives. The ELTAI Pune chapter has proved to be one of the youthful and vibrant chapters under the far-sighted and incredible leadership of the president of the chapter, Professor Z. N. Patil. Our chapter has been conducting workshops and training programs for students and teachers in collaboration with institutions like ELTIS, COEP, Tolani Maritime Institute, MIT ADT University, and other ELTAI chapters in the country. The ELTAI Pune chapter is truly living up to its motto, reaching the unreached. Various national and international organizations have invited the office bearers of our chapter to conduct training sessions. I would like to highlight that all office bearers and members of the ELTAI Pune chapter uphold the values of the teaching profession. During the challenging time of the COVID-19 pandemic, the chapter has conducted 28 workshops virtually in collaboration with ELTAI, Meet, MGR University, and ELTIS. The chapter has also done things beyond academic activities. Our chapter collected funds for the needy to meet their hospital expenses, fighting against various deadly diseases like kidney cancer. At the time when Afghanistan was in turmoil, for the stranded students in Pune. We want to give a message to our brothers and sisters that in their difficult times, we are always with them. Through our activities, we not only want to contribute to the teaching community, but to humanity at large. Now, let me thank every one of you for the support and encouragement that you have given to all of us. Thank you. May I now request Ms. Pallavi Desai to take this session ahead.
Thank you, Kiran. A very good evening to all of you. I would now request Dr. Atul Patil to play a video, since our webinar today is powered by MIT ADT University. Dr. Atul Patil, please. Thank you. I feel honored to introduce today's moderator, Dr. Umesh Pradhan, who is a retired principal of RCM Gujarati High School and an ex-convener, coordinator, BOS State Board. He has been the chairman for school-based exams for Tilak Maharashtra Vidyapit Pune. He has also been a member of the syllabus committee of the DLED and an ex-convener, senior and selection grade training of higher secondary teachers. He has been involved in a lot of ELT material production. So let me just quickly go through it. He's coordinated the formation of textbooks designed by Maharashtra State Board. He's been a convener of the BOS secondary. He has been a member of the DLED syllabus committee. He also contributed to the methodology and proficiency of English. And as a chairman of school-based examinations for Tilak Maharashtra Vidyapit, he had the opportunity to design and develop learning material for the students from 5th to 10th. He has written a number of reference books as well as he has also worked with a lot of teacher training material. So since he was the convener of teacher training program, he has designed the material for English language teachers. He was also a writer of the team material meant for teacher training for the senior scale and selection grade of higher secondary teachers. He has also written several articles on innovative practices in ELT through Shikshan Sankraman, Jivan Shikshan, and the popular newspapers. So a warm welcome to you, Dr. Pradhan.
Thank you, Pallavi, for all your kind words. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We now move on to the introduction of the panelists. So I would first like to introduce Dr. V.T. Patil. He is an ex-convener Board of Studies in English for Standard 11th and 12th at the State Board of Education, Pune. He has worked with Maharashtra State Board of Secondary and Higher Secondary Education in various capacities, such as writer for Yuvak Bharati English course books and teacher manuals. He has also been a resource person for the selection grade and selection grade teacher training and orientation program. He has been an examiner, a moderator, a chief moderator, translator, a paper setter, a scrutinizer, and convener. He has delivered some syllabus-based ELT orientation lectures for students in various junior colleges affiliated to the State Board. Dr. Patil has contributed some articles related to ELT to the Shikshan Sankraman, the magazine published by State Board of Education, Pune. And after retirement in 2015, he worked as a teacher of English for the visually challenged degree college students at Nivant Institution in Pune. And I must mention here that he is a recipient of the President of India Award with Silver Medal and a Certificate of Honor for the meritorious work at the Census of India in 1991. So welcome to the session, Dr. V.T. Patil.
Thank you, ma'am, for good words, complimentary words for me. Thanks.
Most welcome. Let me now introduce our next panelist, Sahib Rao Mahajan sir. He's a headmaster, Sri Sai Kripa, late MS Pisal Vidyalaya, Jambul, Kalyan. He has been a board of study member from 2012 to 2022. He has also been a textbook writer and editor for standard 9 and 10 books from 2012 to 2017. He has worked as an NYT expert for the course book of standard 10 since 2000. He's been working since 2018. He has also been working on material development for SCERT Pune. And the title of his MPhil research was Effectiveness of New English Syllabus of Standard 10th of Marathi Medium Schools in Maharashtra. And his experiences of selecting content, developing activities, implementing teaching methodologies, designing assessment patterns, and reviews of textbooks is known. So welcome to the session, Sahib Rao Mahajan.
Thank you very much.
So a warm welcome to all of you. I think we can begin with the panel discussion now. We have Dr. Pradhan in the chair.
Thank you
Over to
very much,
all three of you.
Pallavi. I take over, and we have here Dr. Vishwas Rao Patil and Sahib Rao Mahajan along with me.
Pallavi,
Yes, sir.
Yes, Professor.
we haven't introduced Rosemary Douglas, Dr. Rosemary Douglas.
Yes, and also the panelist, Dr. Z.N. Patil, sir. When are you going to introduce the panelist, the other one?
No, next slot. Next slot.
Okay, nice.
No, Dr.
But
Rosemary,
we would like to know about Dr. Rosemary. Pallavi.
Yeah.
Well, you want me to speak?
No. He has to introduce you, Rosie.
Yeah, well, okay.
She is not
Pallavi?
seen. Rosemary is not seen. If she could put her video on, please.
Oh,
Pallavi?
it should be on.
No, we can't see you.
All right. Okay. There, it's on now.
There you are. There you are.
Yeah.
Thank you.
At
Thank you.
last. Sorry,
Thank
it
you.
took me so long.
Pallavi,
You see, I am a slow learner because you want me to say something or can I wait?
I mean, Pallavi has to introduce you, Rosie.
Somewhere she's freezed. Pallavi is
Yeah,
freezed.
there is some connectivity issue
Right.
at her end.
So have
Oh.
you got Rosemary's profile, Kiran or Rahul?
No, I haven't got it. Rahul, if you have it, you can share it with me. I can talk. I can introduce her.
Well, unless I do it.
That's the last option.
No, I think I request Professor Zedan Patil to introduce his teacher.
Yeah, but you know, it's very difficult to introduce a person you are close to.
That's true. That's true.
The best introduction that I'd like to have today is that Rosie has been my teacher, my mentor, my friend, philosopher, and guide. And she was one of my teachers when I did my diploma and MA in TESOL, teaching English to speakers of other languages in Edinburgh at Morehouse College of Education, Scottish Centre for Education Overseas. Now that particular institution has become a part of Edinburgh University, right? So I can say that I'm proud to say that Rosie has been my mentor and my teacher. And I mean, she did her PhD in Russian, if I'm not mistaken, Rosie.
My first degree is European Studies with Russian major. I'm a linguist and I learned foreign languages. That's my
Good.
credentials for this occasion. And I learned my languages a long time ago, but I'm still learning a bit. And I'm still teaching at Murray House. I don't teach courses, but I do supervision of dissertations for the masters.
Yeah. Pallavi?
Sorry?
I think she has some technical problem. I have got her profile, although it's written in the first person, but I'll try to read it out.
Yeah, please.
Oh, well done.
Yeah, so it's indeed a matter of privilege for us to welcome Dr. Rosemary Douglas.
Thank you
And
very
let
much.
me briefly introduce her to all of you. The major part of her professional career has been as a lecturer in the Scottish Centre for International Education at Moray House Institute of Education, now part of Edinburgh University. Her responsibilities laterally were primarily in TESOL, curriculum studies, methodology, and teacher education, also dissertation supervision. She also taught Malaysian pre-service teachers for several years on a BA TESOL degree, which involved supervising and assessing teaching practice in Malaysian secondary schools. Also, 2 years secondment to Malaysia's National Teacher Training Institute. In the late 90s, she was seconded to the Aga Khan Foundation as project manager for their education reform project in Gorno, Badakhshas, Pamir in Tajikistan, where she worked with educational professionals at all levels, from primary to higher education, advising on issues such as infrastructure reform, management, curriculum, materials, and methodology, and especially but not exclusively for language education. She has been involved in education and English language teacher development projects in many countries, for example, Mexico, Pakistan, Nigeria, India, China, Switzerland, and the list goes on like this. She has delivered CELTA, Delta, and COT and DOT courses and was Cambridge External Examiner for 2 years as well. Previous to her career in teacher education, she taught Russian and French in Scottish Secondary School, ESL in Further Education College, also EAP in Edinburgh University's Language School. She is now retired, but still supervises and assesses MSc TESOL and language education dissertations part-time. She also teaches a variety of classes in ESL for adult migrants in her local area. She has recently been involved in examining a doctoral thesis based on an action research project evaluating Saudi Arabian secondary school EFL course book materials, focusing on listening, text, and task authenticity, autonomy, and motivation. So we welcome you, ma'am. Thank you very much for making it convenient to grace this occasion. Over to you, Professor Pallavi.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Atul. Thank you. I'm happy that I sent it to you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's nice to have Dr. Rosemary here along with us, and we definitely would like to know from her more about the issue that we are going to discuss about, and that is the principles and process of ELT material.
Thank you.
Well, along with me, I have Dr. Vishwas Rao and Sahib Rao Mahajan. Well, to begin with, when we took over, I mean, Vishwas Rao and myself took over as the convener of the Board of Studies in English, we were given the responsibility of developing the material, mainly the textbooks for standard 10th, 9th and 10th, and Dr. Vishwas Rao was convening the board, which was meant for developing the material for mainly the textbook for standard 11th and 12th. And Sahib Rao Mahajan was in the team of writers meant for standard 10th, 9th and 10th textbooks. Well, when we took over, we were just the teachers. We are and we were at that time just the teachers. And we were given the responsibility of developing a textbook that we were expected to teach. Well, when we started with that, we had lots of problems. I mean, there were lots of issues that we wanted really to sort out, because the expectations were very high at that time, and we were all thinking of doing something different, doing something new, brand new for the teachers and for the learners. Then the first dilemma that we had was about, what do we mean really by ELT material? Well, material is a blanket term, and whether we include only the print material or the non-print material or both, that was a problem. But for all these years, what we learned was through the textbooks, and at the same time, what we taught was also through textbooks. Though we have different kind of materials available. So I would like Dr. Vishwas Rao to say something about, to begin with, like, what do you mean by really ELT material?
Hello, everybody. First, I gratefully extend love and respect to all the dignitaries, Honorable President of ELTAI Pune chapter, and my teacher and mentor, Dr. Jaden Pat. Honorable Global ELT experts, Dr. Umesh Pradhan, Principal Sahib Rao Mahajan, MIT ADT University Pune, Honorable Diligent participants. First, now I would like to begin with the topic process and principles of ELT material production. First, material. So the term material means the content from print media or non-print media, that may be electronic, digital media, but in conversion with or closely familiar with the norms of selection for the textbook to help the teaching learning process in the system of education in Maharashtra, particularly in Maharashtra, in our state. So I would like to begin with the processes Our board of study incorporates near about 17 members. So we collectively start with hunting or search for the material for teaching, learning scenario. Our sources are regional, native, foreign, from print and non-print media. For example, newspapers. We search for newspapers containing our norms of selection. The availability of newspapers for us is Times of India, Indian Express, Hindu, etc. Then magazines like India Today, Reader's Digest, Weeklies, The Week, Outlook, Mirror, Sports. National Textbook Bureau, NBT publication books, literary journal or literary forms, classical and modern, then internet websites. Through all these sources, we try to search or hunt for material essentially needed for our course book preparation. Then we come to collection. Collection is not just the gathering of whatever we get from all these media. So we collect, shortlist the material, which is conversant with the students' learning.
Hello. It seems there is some technical problem. Net,
Okay, sir.
net problem. Sahibrao, would you like to add something?
I'll continue.
Yes, please.
Yeah, as you said, the material, we work on different two type of materials, that is the print material and non-print material. In form of the print material, we studied, we reviewed the old books, textbooks, at the same time workbook. For material, we have used the worksheets, practice books, support materials, and again, we work on the teacher's handbook, a reference material.
Yes.
And at the same time, for non-print media, QR codes are used, videos on internet, audiovisual podcast, some different apps, internet blogs and website we visited, and we collected the material.
Yes. So like today we will concentrate on the principles and process of material development. Yes, but it should let us confine to the textbooks, because textbooks is the only minimum source, affordable source that is available to all the students in the state. In our state, these textbooks are given free to all the students.
Yeah.
And therefore, there's the importance of the textbooks. Though there are limitations to it, still, textbook is the main source of ELT in Maharashtra. Along with that, recently, some experiments are going on of like with the pandemic situation, like using videos and audios and some non-print material as well. And along with that, some print material like self-study material that is being produced. So the experiments are going on at that level. But let us concentrate on the production of textbooks and the principles involved in it. So what can be the norms, what can be the principles, or rather criteria for selection of material and the treatment to be given to the material in form of exercises, in form of different activities and all that. When I took over the charge of the convenership of the board, the responsibility was to develop the textbooks for 9th and 10th. The very first principle that I talked about with my team of writers was, as Sahibrao must be remembering, our textbook should not appear like a textbook. Now, you might surprise that how we can say that. But yes, traditionally, a textbook would be of A5 size with only black print material, with no photographs, with no pictures in it. And it would be an anthology along with some exercises in form of interrogations. But with this principle in mind, that the textbook should not look like a textbook, what I thought was that the textbook should look like a children's magazine. Children should get a feeling that as if they are browsing through the different activities of a children's magazine. So we requested for, and all our requests were granted. We came up with A4 size textbook. The size itself was changed. Then it was agreed, and it really happened that the textbook came in 4 colors.
Yeah.
This was very innovative to have a textbook with 4 colors, with lot of pictures in them, and illustrations and say diagrams, all such things. And not only the students, but the teachers were also surprised to see such a colorful, say, magazine that they are expected to handle. There were less lessons. That was again one principle, that let there be few lessons, but there should be more and more activities in them. I hope that Dr. Vishwasrao has joined. And Dr. Vishwasrao, is it possible?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So can you comment more on the principles? Now we have started with the major issue.
Principles, we start with simple to complex first.
Okay.
Simple in a sense that it helps learners to feel at ease.
Mm-hmm.
It develops their confidence, makes them stress-free, and
Yes.
assures learner involvement.
Yes.
And that's why the simplicity of the material.
Yes.
Then it should be culturally acquainted or familiar. Next point for students.
Okay.
Culturally acquainted or familiar.
Yes, true.
The material should be adherent or close to national heritage. No negative ideas, not biased and controversial, not provocative, no slander, scandal, and defamation, no provocative, no character assassination.
Yes.
It should be value-based, national, social, cultural, educational values should be incorporated in our material. So we follow these norms of culturally acquainted syllabus.
Yes. So the very first thing was selection of material. And while selecting material, that should be objective, based on objectives. That's the major thing, that the material should be based on objectives.
But can I add something?
Yes, before I request Sahibrao to add, it's a request to all the participants that if they want to raise any questions, they can put in chat box. They can raise their questions in chat box, so that maybe in the later session, later part of the session, we can have the answers to them. I also request Dr. Rosemary, if you feel to comment on whatever that we are presenting, please feel free, so that it would be adding at the same time.
Yeah, I have got a question. You've talked about reforming the book so that it is more like a magazine, and less lessons, I think, less lessons, but more activities, or less input, more activities. My question is, what about the effect of the national exams? Is there a washback effect, and has this affected the teachers? And has the exam, I don't know about your national exams. I know that most of the teachers I meet are concerned about teachers teaching to exams and the parents' pressure, and that the students being motivated by their parents to pass exams. So especially at the upper levels of primary and then the upper levels of secondary. So I would appreciate your comment. I think it's a dilemma. I don't entirely know the answer, but I think we need curriculum reform, but we also need examination reform. I think maybe
you have directly hit the point, no doubt. We changed our textbooks and the whole pattern and the approach of developing the textbooks, and that has effect on the our evaluation pattern as well.
Oh, brilliant.
So we changed the evaluation pattern from interrogative based question paper to activity sheet. We changed the nomenclature itself, that we are no more having question paper, but we are having activity sheet, which will contain various kinds of activities. And when we say activities, we mean mental activity as well. It's not the physical. People always say that activity is always with the physical concern, but it's not just physical thing. It is also the activity that goes on in your brain. That is also important. So we changed the evaluation pattern itself, and luckily it's closely related to NAS, that is National Achievement Survey. In National Achievement Survey, what we observed was that the testing was of skills, language skills, and there were no memory-based questions. So what we did through our textbooks was exactly the same. We had no memory-based questions, but we had all based on the language skills. So I would like Sahib Rao to add some more points on this issue.
Yes.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. As Dr. V.T. Patil said, that the first principle we observed for developing the material, it was simple to complex. Let me tell you that for the 10th standard textbook, we had started with the first unit that we have designed, what wit and humor. The concept was that before the school, it was a long holiday, and joining a school after the vacation, the students are a little bit stressed on very first day joining the schools. To attract the students to the school, we have designed that the first unit should be very simple, and it was wit and humor, so that the fun will be there and they will the interest will be created, and students will come up to the schools and they will start learning in an enjoyable way. So this was followed simple to complex. In the same way, the next unit was sports and adventure, and then birds and animals, and afterwards saving environment. From simple to complex, our gradation system was followed in the first principle, that is simple to complex. And in for evaluation pattern, as we discussed, it was totally activity based. Questions were not there, but at the same time, we have thought about the HOTS, personal response questions. That was another feature of that new textbook.
Excuse me, please.
Over to you, sir.
Yes.
Excuse
You want
me,
to
please.
add, Dr. Vishwasrao, do you want to add something?
Yes, sir. So, sir, while
Yes.
talking about evaluation pattern, you exactly pointed out the important things. But I would like to add here, we give break to the overuse of WH questions, the 9 friends, WH words. So, is inquiry-based WH questions in the previous examination pattern were in overuse. So we give break to them. So instead of that, so we do not discard them totally. We take the use of WH questions, but in a moderate term. So we give scope to inference, guessing, interpretation through critical thinking, brainstorming. So let them construct their own knowledge. We check their understanding. because informative WH questions and knowledge gathering we want from the examination pattern.
Yes, yes.
Can I ask something else?
Yes.
I really appreciate the fact that Dr. Pradhan used the word evaluation, not assessment. That I remember 1980s, I didn't know the meaning of the word evaluation. And I asked somebody who worked in Cambridge, what does it mean? And he said, well, it means a more, all-sided, complex way of deciding the value and assessing. So anyway, I won't go into it, but I was very happy myself to hear that word. And I've got two more questions to ask. One is, are the teachers involved in this assessment at all? In Scotland, for less academic kids in secondary school, I think it's sort of changed a bit now, but we always had what was called the certificate of secondary education, and it was based on skills and activities. It wasn't so much question answer and so formal. It wasn't the kind of like Oxbridge type university entrance exams, and the teacher was involved in assessing, and then there was moderation. And we still have that for ESL, in other words, English as a second language for adults. It's done by the teachers, but it is strictly moderated by what's called SQA, the Scottish Qualifications Authority. Now, we don't really do that in schools. With the Conservative government, we've gone back to very meritorious and competitive traditional type exam. But as a sort of reformer, I would argue that what we were doing in the 90s should be picked up again and continued. So that's one question. And the other one I'll keep for later. So are the teachers involved?
Yes, the teachers are very much involved at each and every stage. Even for the material, the team of the writers itself is of the teachers. These are the working teachers from the field, and they have been trained as the writers for the development of the textbook, as well as for framing the question paper. The major change was involving the team of teachers itself in the material development. So they were the part and parcel of material development as well as the testing part of it. So
so that's the answer. What about the criteria? The criteria for deciding the results. I mean, you have to have different levels. Some people pass, some don't pass. Is it graded? And if it's graded, how do you decide the criteria? So I know that in the university, examining critical thinking is very problematic. Because everybody seems to have a different definition of what we mean by critical thinking. So that's one example. An inquiry base. Do they have to give evidence for their answers to projects or questions? Anyway, just
we basically changed the nomenclature. Instead of calling it as a question paper, we started calling it as an activity sheet. So there would be different kind of activities that the children will have to do, and those activities will be in turn checking their abilities in use of language in a different manner. So we will turn to that, like with the material that used to be developed. We had textbook should not appear like a textbook. That was the first, as I said. And then as my colleagues have added, that we thought of activity-based textbook. And then from there, we went ahead and we harp on constructivism. So like pair group activities, like personal response kind of questions. Then we have activities considering the previous knowledge of children, actual debating, discussing in the classes. So that was the constructivism brought in through the textbook and the different activities in the textbook. So we started thinking of developing the material in altogether a different manner from what we used to have previously. So to go a step ahead, like thinking skills and the mental ability. So it's not just the language, but through the language, the children are developing their thinking skill and the mental ability. So summarizing as the skill, define the thing, or analyze the things, compare, contrast. So we have a long list of all these mental abilities that we expected the children to develop through reading English material. Anything that Dr. Vijay Patil you would like to add?
Yeah, brilliant.
Dr. Patil?
Sir. Yeah.
Yes.
So we have reading comprehension activities also for global understanding. We have simple factual questions, complex factual questions, guessing questions, interpretation questions, and we give scope to their personal writing, paragraph expansion, self-writing.
Yes.
Yes.
Sahib Rao? Yes.
Yes, sir. When we were working on activities, we had a purposeful plan. In the beginning, we developed the comprehensive activities so that the students were learning. After that, for example, if the words and their meanings are given, immediately after that exercise, another activity was given. As they have learned the meaning of that particular words or phrases, in the next activity, they were instructed to use that, use the meanings of that particular word. Means we have developed the application-based activity.
Yes.
And again, after that lesson, on another lesson, the same meaning and words were again asked them, so that the reconsolidation activity will appear, so that that knowledge of that meaning of that word will be reconsolidated in their minds. These type of activities were developed. Immediately after then, we went for the testing activity in exam, whether they have learned it or not. And after that, if they have not learned it well, again we have formed a reforming activity. This was the structure of the activities we followed in the textbook.
A sort of chain was established, like testing, teaching, and all these things should go hand in hand. Yes. Dr. Vishwas?
Yes. Dr.
So
Pradhan?
Yes.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, go ahead.
Welcome, sir.
You know, we usually talk about lower order skills and higher order skills. For example, we begin with remembering, and then we proceed to understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So do the textbooks that you produced some years ago satisfy these different levels, that there are activities which are meant to develop, for example, remembering skills or understanding skills or applying and analyzing skills or evaluating and creating skills? Do you have, can you cite
Dr. Vishwasra, would you like to comment on this?
Yes. For example, my question, Dr. Vijay Patil, let me draw your attention to a very important point. Usually most of the questions focus on remembering and understanding, but there are very few questions which focus on applying, analyzing, evaluating, and in particular creating skills. So can you give us an example? Can you give us an example? No, let me finish.
That's why our
Let me finish
that's why our shift is from. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir. That's why we have the great shift from.
Do you have, just give me half a minute, do you have any special activities, any special tasks that focus on developing creativity skills or creativity or creating skills? Can you give us one example of such an activity?
Yes.
Yes, so for creativity, the last part of the question paper contains the interview. So taking the interview, so only asking the questions for interview, and the last one for their personal creativity, giving any topic, the title of the topic, pros and cons, or view, counter view. So for that, one statement would be given, and they may write the counter view of that view counter view. So that's what their personal responses, personal opinion, and give scope to their own creativity.
I would like to add at this moment. Dr. Zedin Patil,
Yes,
we had writing skill questions, which
Yes.
is open-ended, and the children were expected to say write on certain issues, like write from formal, informal letters to view, counter view, then inference transfer. So a lot of variety there in the skill of writing, wherein the children are expected to, whatever that they have learned, whatever that they have acquired, they're expected to write and show as a proof. So that was one part of it. And what you have pointed out is that the whole text and the material and the exercises and the activities were based like on Bloom's taxonomy, like from recognition sort of to the creativity part of it. So we slowly, with all these exercises, we trained our students to start with just a simple activity of comprehension and remembering to the analysis and further application, and at the end, the creativity in it. So the children were expected to create their own story, for example, or a news item, for example. So wherein a lot of creativity would be there on the part of the children. So definitely what you are pointed out is very much there.
Yeah, thank you so much. For example, you have a story, you give the beginning of the story and the middle of the story, and you leave the ending of the story open, and different students in the classroom will come up with different endings to the story.
Yes,
so
definitely.
That sort of activities. Thank you so much for your answer.
Definitely, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to you.
So as to move ahead, like when we are talking about the principles and all such things, like Dr. Vishwas Rao, just
So now,
can you say something about
so
experiential learning that we followed in our while developing the material?
no, first I would like to talk about selection and adaptation and link it to the age appropriateness.
Okay, go ahead. Yes.
So while selecting the material, we go through it carefully, think over its pros and cons, the positive and negative arguments, and following the norms of suitability, utility, authenticity, novelty, variety, and language appropriateness. So these students are teenagers, and for them, we avoid the material which is full of murders, suicides, bloodshed, devastation, annihilation, etc. So our focus is to select some interesting, enthusiastic material for these.
Okay, yes. Sahib Rao, would you like to add something?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
As Dr. V.D. Patil said that the age appropriateness. Yeah, if you see that the age appropriateness means the material that is developed for their capability of the students, their level of understanding the content. It was considered. For if you think the metaphysical poetry of John Donne would not be appropriate for their age, as they are full of concept, abstract
metaphysical things.
Metaphysical, the abstract things. So it will not be age appropriate. For that, if we go for the present textbook of the 10th standard, in the beginning of the book, there is a poem, Teenager's Prayer. So the students who are learning in the 10th standards, they are themselves in the teenage. So it's related to their age. And that is why this age appropriateness is observed in the textbook. We have used that instead of going that metaphysical poetry, it will not be useful for that. And that is why we have selected such a type of material that will be related to their lives.
Yes, very good, very nice. Yes, that's
Please,
true.
please. One more point, yes, sir. Language
Yes.
appropriateness.
Mhm.
Language appropriateness. So we do not select the material with too much idiomatic phrases, etc. For example, oftentimes we give the example of the Clark Liu application.
Mhm.
The beginning of that later just goes like that. As the hand that rocked the cradle in my house kicked the bucket, my house is in sixes and sevens. So such type of idiomatic language would not be suitable for our students at secondary and higher secondary level because it would make that language somewhat more idiotic. That's why we avoid it. So language.
Yes.
Even the words used by Shashi Tharoor will not be useful for the SSC students.
Yeah.
The terminology would be a problem. Like we yes okay, Rosemary, go ahead.
Rosie has something, I think.
Yeah, I was going to ask, we've talked quite a lot about reading and writing. What about listening and what about speaking? That's one question. And then I have a different one. What about plagiarism? If you've got an activity sheet for the assessment and you've trained the students through the textbook with the teacher to do activity sheets, how do you ensure that it's individual work and not borrowed? So there's two questions there. About listening and about speaking, and then about not cheating.
Dr. V.T. Patil, would you like to comment on that?
Sir. Yes, sir. Our question paper is of generally is of 80% of marks, and that gives that justifies our reading and writing skills. But for listening and speaking skill, we have separate examination, that is the oral examination, and in that oral examination we cover 20 marks for listening, speaking, testing listening, speaking ability.
Yeah. Right.
And what was the last question, last part of it?
How do you stop people cheating? If they do an
Cheating.
activity sheet, it's not an exam, is it?
Yes.
They do it. It's continuous assessment with the teacher in the school and yeah, you know what I mean.
The children were so used to solve the activities that they couldn't even lift their head to look here and there. So there was no problem of copying at all. Okay. And the children were trying very hard because they had quite a lot material to read and to go through. So they were involved in reading of the activity sheet first of all. So that helped them to give their
no scope for copying
while dealing with the different activities. Yes.
Right.
Dr. Pradhan, can I ask a related question, a question that is related to Rosie's question?
Please ahead.
Yeah, she spoke about listening and speaking skills and whether there is any scope in the textbook to develop these two particular skills. Now, my question is, do we have activities or tasks in the textbook that require the learner to do some kind of pre-listening and while listening and post-listening and pre-speaking and while speaking and post-speaking? Do we have?
Yes, sir, definitely. Yes, sir. And Sahib Rao would be a better speaker for that because he was one of the writers in the writers team. So he had actually developed the material in that particular manner. So, Sahib Rao,
yes, sir. The structure of our unit or the particular lesson was that first was before you read. So some exercises were given based on their previous knowledge. So they get so that they can get ready for the new knowledge to be learned. After that, while reading, some questions were given, and after the lesson, after the reading, we had a such type of structure, and at the end of the lesson, again we had the structure according to the skills. First, comprehension activities. After that, we had a listening activity, then speaking activity, and then writing activities. So the structure was in such a way, in a graded form. So every skill was given a scope so that the students can learn them easily.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Back to you.
One more, excuse me, one more addition, sir. In our
Mm.
question paper for listening and speaking skills, we have the exercises for dialogue writing, interviews, role playing, and through that we cover to some extent these two skills.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Back to you. Dr. Pradhan, back to you.
Yeah. So when we are talking about these principles of developing the material, what we observed was like giving importance to the learning process. And all our activities were based on helping the children, and not only the children, but the teacher as well, of how to go about developing language of the children. So the process was given more importance while planning of these activities, and the teacher and the students were involved in doing something every now and then, so that they develop listening, speaking, reading, writing, and not only that, the other skills like communication at the same time. So vocabulary also, how to find meaning of words. So the textbook, the activities would practically help the children in how to find meaning of the words out of context. So that sort of exercises that we, or activities that we framed, wherein the children would understand, the teachers would understand, first of all, how the children learn. The process of learning was given more importance, and all our activities were based on that process itself. So that was the major.
So in a sense, what you are saying, Dr. Pradhan, is that the destination, the arrival at the destination was important. The product was important, but the journey was more important.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. So
yes.
there was equal emphasis was given on the arrival at the destination and the actual journey. So the journey was given more.
Yes, and all the activities in the textbook were helping the child to learn. And not only the child, but the teacher also used to know how to go about, because the teachers were using their own methods and ways and means to teach, and mainly that might be examination oriented. But the focus itself was changed, and the activities were so arranged, like from LSRW, so that the children get used to their say how the language is being learned, and through skills that that was taught, or what that was given importance to.
So are they offered activities where they review their own learning and think about their autonomy and strategies for learning? Are these in the course book as well?
Yes, very much, because we had introduced pair and group activities, wherein the children were not expected to answer the questions individually. First of all, they had to discuss within groups, within smaller groups, or if possible in pairs, because of the classroom situation here. It's not possible to form larger groups. Maybe in pairs they discuss first of all, and then they answer. So that was the strategy followed in the textbook. Yes.
Even the group activities were introduced.
Yes.
Language games.
Yeah, through that they can go ahead. Well, then when we are talking about these principles, like the treatment that was given for teaching and learning of grammar was equally important. So I would like Vishwas Rao to talk about this, like the treatment given for teaching and learning of grammar.
Yes, Betty.
Doctor?
Yeah, so for teaching of grammar, we do not use prescriptive grammar here.
Yes.
In prescriptive grammar, the rules are given, that is rule-based. Rules are given, then sentences are given. So instead of that, we focus on functional use of language, functional approach of grammar. So we first give examples, sentences, grammatical aspect sentences to the students. We provide a lot of sentences to them. Then we generalize how this pattern is used or constructed, and then come to the rules. From examples to rules, we gradually come to rules. We do not ask them to memorize the rules. So while teaching, we do not say that is the grammatical rule. That is only the activity, and through this activity, they imbibe in themselves the rules of grammar. So that is not particular hammering of grammar rules. So we give activities like that, fill in the blanks, then multiple choice questions, selecting the words from the brackets and fill.
Yes. Saibra, would you like to add something?
Yes, sir. Yes, definitely. I would like to share my idea regarding the grammar. The treatment given to the grammar was not a traditional one, as Dr. V.T. Patil said. I would like that we have given the focus on developing their thinking skill. So what was our idea? First, the sentence is given. Immediately after, the answer is also given. And then there were some questions. What words are added? What words are omitted? What changes you observe? Is there any change in the meaning? In such type of thinking, questions were provided to them so that gradually they will go towards the knowing the rules of that particular grammar. This was the treatment given to the grammar from us as an activity-oriented learning grammar.
Yeah.
And, can I just say something, Dr. Pradhan? Can I just?
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yeah, when we talk about materials development, we also principles such as or processes such as selecting and grading, right? Yes. Whenever we talk about materials creation or development, we naturally have to talk about selection and grading. Now, as far as the teaching of grammar is concerned, do you think these two principles were taken care of while developing materials? Because, for example, there are 12 tenses, 3 major tenses, past, present, and future, and then there are other tenses. So in the total number of tenses is 12. Now, when we listen to people around us in actual life, we realize that most conversations happen in simple past, simple present, or simple future, or 3 of them together simultaneously. But when we teach grammar in schools, we teach all the 12 tenses together. Yes. Do you think this is a good idea? Because even if I were given this particular job of teaching grammar in my class, I would teach only 3 tenses: simple past, simple present, simple future. Because when my learners have mastered these 3 simple tenses, they can do 70% of the job in real life situations. Like, for example, last week I did this, I spent so much, I made so many calls, and every day I go to school, I go by whatever.
Excuse me, if I interrupt you at this moment, I'm sorry. Like what we followed was about like all grammar in our, especially in our activity sheet. We no more call it as a question paper. We call it as an activity sheet, wherein we had no separate question on grammar. All grammar was in context. All grammar was like a passage was given, and all our questions or the activities that were based on that particular passage. So the grammar was also based on that particular passage, wherein children would get a lot of context, and then using that context, they can convert or have the changes with meaningful, the functional aspect of the change, and not just the grammatical acrobat from changing from one to another, but in true sense, the children would be applying the different things, and that's the way in which they acquire language. Especially the marks were also allotted to the free use of grammar in writing skill section, because when the children write independently, they're applying their knowledge of grammar. There is no point in just asking for the transformational sort of grammar. And therefore, what we did was to contextualize grammar for at all the times. So there was a grammar test of grammar, but that was based on the text. That's the passage. There was a test of grammar, independent use of grammar, without asking them to use a one particular kind of thing, and that was free. When they were when they are writing something, they are applying the rules of grammar, and that's how we had given the treatment, not as a separate question on grammar, but as an intrinsic internal part of language itself.
Oh, yes, thank you, Dr. Pradhan.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would like to know how much time we are left with, because we have a panel. We have some extra
if
including
you
Rosie.
could just tell me, there are just few points left.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, Rosie has a question, I suppose. Rosie?
Yeah, well, I teach grammar that way. I do a conversation lesson with adults, and I get them to write, but mainly conversation. But then we do the functional explanation of which tense they should have used for what. I have to say they get very confused, and I'm not entirely confident about my progress. And I'm wondering, I just think they need to do self-study for the grammar. But anyway, that's my, it's a sort of a question, a rhetorical question.
yes. So if we go ahead, like there are some few points that we would like to present, and the textbook used to present the activities that would expect the children to go beyond the textbook. So textbooks is not just limited 4 corners, but every now and then we were expecting the children to go beyond the textual experiences. So that was the major point of what we did. Anything that you would like to add, Dr. V.T. Patil? Dr. V.T. Sahibrao?
Yeah.
You want to add something?
For related to grammar, no?
Yeah, no, related to the next aspect, like going beyond the text.
Yeah, beyond the text. Yeah. See, in our after the text, when our vocab, then listening and speaking activities are over, in a after that LSRW activity, we had given some activities related to survey, visiting places. Yes. So that they can go, or even we had given activities that browse the a particular topic from internet. You can get the information related to, or go and visit the particular person in your close area. So interviews, survey, visits, such type of activities were given so that they can go beyond the textbook.
Yes, yes, very much true. If we just go ahead with the next part of our discussion, and that is, well, we can go on adding like going beyond the text that was considered as important while developing the material. Then the critical thinking was given importance. Then the collaborative learning was also expected while in the classroom situation, and the text has to be teacher and learner friendly at the same time. That we aimed at. Also, the roles of the teachers and the students were well defined while we develop our material. Now I would like to move ahead, and that's like the process that we follow while developing the material, the other part of our discussion. So Dr. Vishwasra, would you like to comment on this, the process that we followed while developing the material?
The next process of organization, arranging the content in sequential order, systematic classification of the literary forms, learning tasks, activities, spoken and written. So after that, the main point is approval. So we get our course book approved by the special committee at the state board level. After that comes the point of validity approval. So for this, we get the approval we get it approved, its validity from the ELT experts at the level of NCERT, British Council, university departments from regional as well as out of state universities.
Yes.
So we get validity to our course before the publication.
So that was, you mean that was the process followed for the
Process
development
followed.
of the
Yes.
material.
So
Yes.
we want validity to our course books.
Yes, very good.
After the
And there was a
training.
moderation also of the textbook.
And then teacher feedback and student feedback. For
Yes.
teacher feedback, we invite at least 10 experienced teachers from all the 9 divisions of the board, and near about 100 teachers are invited. They come collectively there, think over the course book copies, read them carefully, and decide what lacunas are there in the course book. They point out, and we think over the lacunas, drawbacks or disadvantages, and improve on. So that is, we get teacher feedback. We also get student feedback implementing the pilot project. We randomly select some schools from all the 9 divisions, from rural base as well as urban base, and we actually have teaching sessions. And after the student-teacher interaction, we come to know through their feedback, is our course book is worthy of giving them challenges for easy interactive learning.
Yes.
And
yes.
then
Dr. Pradhan,
Yes.
sorry for interrupting you, because we have 6 to 7 colleagues and friends waiting for
Yeah,
their
it's just the last
So
point.
could you please
We are
wind up a couple of
We are,
minutes?
we are concluding. Yes.
yes,
Yeah,
conclude.
please.
So we
Thank you.
published the book.
Yeah. Nice. Thank you.
After publication also,
Yeah.
we welcome the public opinion,
Yes.
their comments at a large scale for improvisation.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Sahib Rao, would you like to add
Yeah,
to this?
Yeah, yes, sir. I would like to add, as Dr. V.T. Patil said, that approval and review of the teachers and students. Then we had a rough draft. After the rough draft was published, then we went for editing and correcting the material. Again, once it is the final drop is ready and the books are published, then we started the awareness program. Awareness regarding the new syllabus, new textbook, awareness program for teachers, students, parents, and other stakeholders. After that, we had trainings and workshops, particularly for teachers. And in between, the one important point that we forgot, that the material that was selected was sent for the copyright permission.
Yeah.
We had taken that copyright permission, otherwise there would be a great issue. So we have also followed that the copyright permission. And after the trainings, again, there was a review. What opinions are there in newspaper, in trainings, in workshop, what teachers, students feel regarding that, and then that were also considered. In this way, we had followed the process of developing ELT material.
Okay, thank you very much, Sahib Rao. And
Thank you very much.
Dr. Pradhan, I think we should conclude now, because
Yes.
it would be unfair on my part, on our part.
Yes, yes. We are having guests, and we would
expert.
like to have their opinion as well.
Yes,
Just to
yes.
conclude,
Please.
I must thank Dr. V.T. Patil and Sahib Rao Mahajan, who were the part of this discussion. And there are many more points that we can go on talking about, but to keep them in a smaller time is always a challenge. So thank you very much, Dr. V.T. Patil and Sahib Rao Mahajan, for your participation. Well, of course, various principles of language acquisition we have followed during the development of the textbooks, and also the development of evaluation pattern. But we can discuss about those issues at some other time.
Maybe we can have another session,
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Maybe some other time.
Yeah.
And I must thank Rosemary for offering her comments and her queries Well,
Thank you.
I'm sure that she must
the
be having
discussion-
many more questions to ask.
I'd like to thank you. It's been really interesting. Thank you.
Thank
The
you.
discussion was
Thank you very much.
The discussion was, sorry, the discussion was really very enlightening, very revealing, very eye-opening. But Rosie's contribution to the discussion was the icing on the cake. It was an icing on the cake. Thank
I
you
hope
very
it
much.
was the knife in the cake.
No.
Yeah, so we can eat it. No, because the cake is to be eaten. So we have to, cut it and eat it. I think we did.
We'll do that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now, back to you, Pallavi or Rahul.
We are open for the discussion, and we would like to have the additional inputs from our listeners.
Rahul, Pallavi,
Kiran is there. Kiran is there.
Yes.
Where is Rahul and where is Pallavi?
Yeah, they should be there. We can move on to question and answers.
No, not question and answer. There is a whole session going, coming.
Where is Rahul then? I don't know. I mean.
Okay, so a very good evening to you, friends and colleagues. It was a wonderful discussion on a very important topic, processes and principles of ELT, English language teaching materials development. And we enjoyed it so much. And we'll remember this discussion for a long time to come.
Thank you, sir.
Now we have some 6 to 7 external global experts with us to offer their special comments. They narrate their personal stories of failures or successes and so on and so forth. And we look forward to their contribution. The first speaker is Dr. Dhiravit. Dhira, are you there? Dhira? Dr. Dhiravit?
Yeah, he's there. I've asked him to unmute. He is on mute.
Hello,
Yeah.
Dr. Dhira?
Yeah, he's there.
Okay, I'm in, sorry.
Okay.
I just finished my dinner.
Okay. So good evening, Dhira, and we were waiting for you. We'd like to see you. Don't please disappear. We'd like to see you.
Okay, I'm still there, right?
No, I don't see you. Switch on your video, please.
Okay, fine. Go ahead. I can talk without, because I'm in a bad situation here.
Okay.
I can talk.
Let me briefly introduce my friend and colleague from Thailand, Dr. Dhiravit Penyongatharn. He's an associate professor in School of Liberal Arts, Shinwatra University in Thailand. Currently, he is the director of doctoral program of semiotics and cultural studies. You will be happy to know that he did his PhD in India. He was a student of Delhi University, and he did his PhD in linguistics. And he's also a creative writer. He wrote a novel several years ago, which was translated by one of my colleagues at English and Foreign Languages University. And I suppose, if I'm not wrong, Dhira, the title of the novel is I Left My Love in Delhi, right?
Yes, exactly. Thank you for mentioning.
Wonderful. Dhira was in love with an Indian girl, and that's why he wrote a novel. And the title of the novel is I Left My Love in Delhi. So welcome, Dhira, and we would request you to offer your special comments on this particular.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Z. My best mentor, my best brother in India. All right, thank you so much.
So we would, Dhira, just give me half a minute. We would like you to offer your special comments in 5 minutes on this particular topic, processes of material development or principles. You can talk about processes or principles, or you can talk about one process, one principle. It's your choice. So back to you. 5 minutes.
Thank you so much for that. I would just make general comments about the process. First, about the goal of language programs, and then the process of developing the ELT material, right?
Can we
see
you, Dhira? We don't see you. Can we see you, Dhira?
You can hear me. It's okay. I'm not in a good place to see. Sorry for that. You can hear me, right?
Go ahead.
Okay, the goal language program is to utilize language for effective communication. But due to the needs, interests, and motivations of language learners, they may show individual differences in their language learning. Materials used in language program can be instructional,
Okay.
elucidative, or exploratory. In that, they can inform learners about the language, provide experience of the language in use, and help learners to make discoveries about the language for themselves. Material development is both a field of study and a practical undertaking. At the theoretical level, the principles of the design, implementation, and evaluation of ELT materials will be taken into account, right? And then I like to move on to what are the steps of material development, as you have given me 5 minutes, all right? Thank you for that. So I go quickly. In developing such materials, the following steps are required. I think you have done that. All of you are experts in the field, and most of you mentioned very good things in during your discussion and your presentation. But from my point of view, I like to share the following steps required in developing such materials. First, you have a field survey or analysis, or need analysis, I can say that anyway. Second, you need to have analysis of data and identifying priority needs. Next would be your selection of the theme. Then selection of the format.
Right.
Next would be selection of content. And the most important step right here would be writing, illustrating, and editing the material. And the last step here, the last process, would involve pre-testing of draft material. In other words, I can put it another way, in 8 steps. I think I have 2 minutes more. All right, in 8 steps. Step 1, analyze requirements. Step 2, identify learning objectives or learning outcomes. 3, develop design. All right, develop design. You need to develop your design. And number 4, step 4, you need to create a storyboard. Number 5, develop prototype. You need a model, not a supermodel, but model, all right? Step 5, develop prototype. Step 6, develop training. You need to train. You need to be the trainer, all right? And number 7, deliver the training to the trainers. You are going to be to the trainees, because you are going to be the trainer, all right? And the final step would involve evaluating the impact. You need to evaluate the impact of your material development in this stage, in the final stage, right? Before you start using the material in real situation. So these are the things that I would like to share with all of the experts here and all of the participants right here today. I'm so happy, so honored. Professor Z.N. Patel is my close friend, my big brother in India. I really respect his expertise and his personal charm. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dheera. And we enjoyed your little talk. You captured the essence of the whole discussion. You captured the essence of all the ideas that were explained and expressed by our panelists, Dr. Pradhan, Dr. V.T. Patil, and Dr. Saib Majan, and in particular, Rosie, my teacher, my mentor. Thank you so much, Dheera.
Sorry, goodbye from Thailand. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Bye. Namaste from Thailand.
Sawadika. Okay, thank you. So our next speaker is Dr. Darshan Samaravira. Darshan? Darshan, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. I'm there.
Thank you so much. Nice to see you after a long time. So let me introduce my friend and colleague, my younger brother, Darshan Samaravira. Darshan is from Sri Lanka. He works in Colombo. He is from the National Institute of Education based in Colombo. He did his MPhil, Master of Philosophy from CIEFL, that is Central Institute of English and Foreign Languages, Hyderabad. And we used to discuss several things during his stay there. I was still in service. I had not retired. So presently, Darshan is the Deputy Director General of the Faculty of Languages and Humanities and Social Sciences. He is the Executive Director of the South Asian Center for Teacher Development. And if I'm not mistaken, Darshan, you obtained your PhD from Malaysia, right? Am I right? So
yes,
welcome
of course.
Welcome to this panel discussion session, Darshan, and we look forward to a very enlightening talk by you. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Patil. Actually, first of all, I must congratulate and thank our panelists for the wonderful job done. And this is actually a very challenging task, particularly preparation of ESL materials in this part of the world, where majority of our learners are second language speakers or second language learners of English. And there, I think when we consider the processes, we have the challenge of maintaining authenticity and at the same time bringing these two cultures together, because the language, target language, brings one culture, and in the ground, of course, we have another culture. So we have to maintain the balance between these two cultures. That is one of the things. And at the same time, now in the 21st century, where we talk about industry 4.0 and education 4.0,
yes, sir.
bringing in other aspects like not only teaching the language, English language, but enriching the education system, particularly 21st century education with English language teaching with our materials is another challenge. Where we have to think of language.
Saibra, there is interruption there. Yeah, please go ahead, Darshan.
Right. Teaching the language and at the same time bringing in 21st century skills and character and citizenship development, particularly global citizenship development. Those aspects I think we need to have in our mind. And the other aspect, of course, I want to ask this question to our panel. Now, you mentioned the concept of age-appropriate materials. Now, how do we determine the age appropriateness of these materials? That is another challenge, I think, when we consider the processes. Do we consult students at any point of the process? Now, that is, I think, one of the very pertinent questions, because now we belong to the previous generation, but now we are dealing with the alpha generation. So in that process, how are we going to determine what is good and what is appropriate for that, for the age of the a particular age limit of the alpha generation? Now, that is one of the questions I would like to ask our panelists. So, and the other aspect is, how are we, now this is, of course, this comes with the principles. Now, how are we capture the process of language acquisition when we produce and when we develop materials, particularly how to make the language acquisition process learner friendly and to maintain this concept of comprehensible input within our textbooks, within our materials. Now, these are some of the challenges I think we have in this part of the world, and we all need to answer these questions, and we all need to find how to meet these challenges, find a way to meet these challenges as a region. That is what I want to highlight at this moment. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you, Professor Patil and ELTAI Pune chapter for the wonderful work.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Darshan. It's our pleasure to have you with us today. And you mentioned a couple of very new points, very novel points, which were not covered earlier during the panel discussion. Thank you so much for this. And please, Darshan, put your questions in the question and answer box. And I'm sure Dr. Pradhan and Dr. V.T. Patil and other members, Dr. Rosemary Douglas, will try to answer your questions. Please put your questions in the Q&A box. Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Darshan. And our next speaker is Dr. Kinle Dorji from Bhutan. Kinle, are you there? Kinle? Hello, Kinle? Okay, we can come back to Kinle later, maybe. So now we have Motikala Subha Devan, Mrs. Motikala Subha Devan. Motikala ji, are you there?
Yes, Professor Patil.
Nice to see you.
Me too also.
Smiling. You have a smiling face. You smile all the time and you energize us, revitalize us. Thank you so much for your presence. So
thank you, Professor.
Let me very briefly introduce my friend and colleague, Motikala Subha Devan. She is an associate professor of English at Tribhuvan University in Kathmandu, Nepal. She is also a Supreme Court lawyer in Kathmandu. She is a big shot, not just a teacher, but an advocate, a lawyer, and that too Supreme Court lawyer, right? And she has been the president of NELTA for several years. For how many years, Motikala ji? For 2-3 years?
Yeah, still 2 years left, until 2024.
Until 2002, yeah. So Motikala ji, has been the president of NELTA. NELTA means Nepal English Language Teachers Association. And she has been very kind to me, particularly in person, because she sponsored my visit to Kathmandu nearly 3 times, if I'm not mistaken. All right, so thank you very much for those invitations, Motikala ji. And we request you to offer your special comments, because I know that you produce some textbooks for class 11 and class 12 in Nepal, in association with, in collaboration with British Council and other agencies. So I'm sure you have a lot of rich experience of materials development. We would like to listen to you and share your experiences. So please tell us about materials development processes and principles in 5 minutes. Thank you so much. Back to you.
Thank you, Professor Patil, for nice introductions and encouraging words. Namaskar and good evening to all the distinguished speakers and guests. First of all, I would like to thank the organizer MTADT, University Pune, India, and the ELTAI Pune chapter, especially Professor Dr. Jaden Patil, for inviting me to this significant forum and providing the opportunity to share my knowledge and experience on the given topic, processes and principles of ELT material production. Hearing from the renowned experts, I got an idea of what does it mean by ELT material production. I'm not an expert, though I have prepared or produced some of the materials for, yes, the BA, LLB, and also for the BA students, and also for the 11-12. However, I will try to share my experience and from the Nepalese perspectives, which might not be relevant to others also, other countries, in a brief, considering the time, in a brief. And I understood from listening experts that materials development refers to all the processes and principles made use of by the practitioners who produce or use the materials for the language learning, including materials evaluations, their adaptation, design, productions, exploitations, research, etc. So I believe the effectiveness of teaching and learning is based on the appropriate ELT materials and their use. In Nepal, we largely depend on the ELT materials, particularly I'm talking of the textbooks and the reference books that are written or developed by highly skilled and experienced foreign writers and authors. Sometimes our teachers find it difficult to comprehend, explain the talks, contents and context. I give you one example. I teach one of these subjects, environmental literature and criticism in master's level, MA, and the most of the compiled essays, articles, poems, and stories in the book are written in the context of the USA. Sometimes I ask myself why I have been teaching my students the US cultures, contents, and geography. So a student too asks me, why don't we learn about our culture and the context and our environment? That is very pathetic and kind of, we are very unfortunate. We don't have that kinds of materials prepared by, produced by ourselves. So I don't have any answer for that. I personally feel there is a dire need of developing local yet quality materials in ELT that should be relevant culturally and contextually. At present, the government of Nepal is also encouraging local writers and publishers to develop ELT materials and textbook. I think this is the beginning. And I take my liberty to share the one project, Student Design English Language Teaching Materials Development project that is running by the Sunway University of Malaysia. And the teachers from Nepal, NELTA, India, Malaysia, Hong Kong, China, and Indonesia, they are involved in these projects. The aims of the projects are to investigate in the impact of students produce English language teaching materials on their engagement in learning the language and developing their intercultural competence, especially in socio-economically disadvantaged and geographically remote areas, to understand the view on the feasibility of involving the learners in a materials design project. So in this project, 3 focal teachers from each country are involved, and they are oriented on the multimodal material development process. It's a project for 1 year. A total of 278 students of grades 9 and 10 from the community schools in Nepal are engaged in the project, and they have developed different sets of materials for language teaching and learning. To develop 4 skills through various topics like culture, food, music, flood and COVID environment, and many more, with various activities such as matching the words, teaching vocabulary, grammar, tenses, tag questions, short questions, answers. So there are many more, and similar number of students are involved from other countries too. So we conducted online field surveys, interviews with the teachers, and identified needs, selected format and contents, and analyzed data, and implemented the pre-testing of draft material, including the various activities in the classroom in various schools of respective countries, exchanging the materials. So we got feedback and comments from the teachers and students that most of them said they are very interesting and simple because they are developed by the students of their levels, and some of the topics are similar to their context. It's quite an experience. But however, there are always the challenges we have to face. And the challenges we face, though we have provided format in instructions, so very few materials are designed for the listening and speaking skills. And due to the lack of the devices and technical knowledge and less access to the internet in our school children and the teachers, because we are developing these materials for the remote areas, schools and teachers and students. So we felt difficulty in identifying common content, which could be familiar to all and can be linked together. It's very, very time consuming and difficult to follow up, and compiling the data in the format and coding was time taking and lengthy. And the materials prepared by the students are not structured well. However, I'm optimistic this type of project might help to compile ELT materials prepared by the learners in Asian nations that will encourage learners to share their cultures and contexts and learn and compare with theirs. We hope that it will empower and motivate them to improve their English language skills and own the ELT materials. To sum up, I learned from the project that while producing the ELT materials, the contents should be common, relevant, contextual, simple activities with a clear instruction useful for all and familiar to the students, whatever kind of processes or principles we follow. And developed materials should be always tested and validated before rolling them out. Thank you very much. I haven't taken much time. Thank you very much,
Galaji. Thank you for sparing your time, valuable time for our ELTAI and Pune chapter of ELTAI. Thank you so much. And thanks a lot for presenting your perspective, Nepalese perspective on this particular issue of materials development. And of course, Nepal and India share so many things. We are almost the same culture, right? Our language is the same, moral is the same, right? Not identical, but our languages are very similar. Our cultures are very similar. So our nations are very close, politically and culturally and linguistically and so on and so forth. Thank you so much for presenting your views on this particular topic. Thanks a lot and hope to see you again. Thank you. Now, Kinley, is Kinley there? Okay. Now we have Dr. Rosemary Douglas here with us. She has already expressed several of her views and opinions and experiences. And now we request her again because her presence is very, very valuable. This is not to say that the presence of other colleagues, other experts is not valuable. Everybody is valuable. Everybody's contribution is invaluable. Thank you very much. So, Rosie, may we request you to offer your special comments in 5 minutes, please?
Yes, I will add one or two things. I don't develop materials, and I have never actually written a course. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay, I've never actually developed a course book, but obviously I've worked with teachers using their textbooks and course books, handling the exams and dealing with their busy schedules, their very large classes, and talking about and their own competence, particularly often in spoken English. So these are things that probably need attention. All of them will talk about the problem about motivating their students. This appears not to have been something we've very much discussed, but it was brought up, was it by Doji? Anyway, about age appropriacy and about consulting the students, Samavira maybe, consulting students. One of my, somebody whose doctorate I looked at was doing action research. And again, we haven't really mentioned this, but if action research is done involving the teachers, and I think it was implied in the beginning when we were talking about, when Dr. Pradhan was talking, I think the consultation with teachers is really action research, and it goes through various cycles. So the sort of pre-while post-use of materials in the classroom, very much involving the opinion of the teachers as how they get on with their teacher's manual or whatever support they're given, and how the book and the materials work, but also involving the students. So the particular action research thing which I endorsed, I thought was very interesting, was that surveys and questionnaires and mini interviews were given by another teacher, often after using authentic materials. So that plus the introduction of authentic materials, mainly taken from YouTube. And I raise that because I think it's quite a contentious issue, using the media for input into materials. It can't actually be done in a course book, but I suppose it can be guided and advised through a course book or the teaching book. So I think the use of internet, and not just YouTube, but there's things like TED, there's all the written materials, but the valuable thing about YouTube maybe is that it's all spoken and it's different varieties of English. So I suppose it's very important that we don't introduce students in their listening to just one variety of English, whether it's our own or whether it's what's called standard English or American English. But I think we need, since we're talking about a global language, we need to talk about all the different languages that people use. And it, no doubt, it affects the grammar, but it particularly affects pronunciation and listening skills. Okay, so consulting the students, the actual learners, at some point is important when we're talking about age appropriacy, also about what's motivating for them, what they're interested in, and then what tasks they're going to do for their collaborative activities and their small research projects. I also wonder, increasingly, higher education is research oriented and empirical research oriented. So I wonder in secondary school, some of our projects that we recommend might not include research. And I think, again, Pradhan and Mahajan mentioned this, that students go and they find out about something, but then they need to reference their sources and they need to evaluate them and apply their critical thinking. And to do that in English, they require quite precise and high levels of language. So I guess self-correction, peer correction, and what do you call it, and self-analysis or self-evaluation and consideration of how far I've got with my learning and how to get, it's very important to include these as part of any course materials that we develop. So developing them all, then trialing them before, trying them in use, and then post-use evaluation and consideration, using authentic materials, thinking about the motivation of both the inputs and the tasks, and again, dealing with, well, expanding our resources. You mentioned free books, that every textbook is given out free, and that depends on printing. Well, during the pandemic in Scotland, and I think in England, and I don't know where else in the world, many pupils were given a tablet, and it's isn't beyond the sort of us thinking that maybe students could all be issued via their schools with tablets that their teachers are trained to have some control of, and tablets can be monitored and restricted so that they can't get into difficulties, because I can see that access to the internet is a major sort of risk which parents are need to be aware of, and teachers need to be certainly, if not in total control, at least advised of. Anyway, that's my contribution, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Rosie, for a wonderful. Thank you very much, Rosie, for your wonderful contribution. Now, Rosie was introduced earlier, and that's why I didn't introduce her this time. But let me just say that I am greatly indebted to her for mentoring me, teaching me during my stay in Edinburgh. So thank you so much, Rosie, and hope to be in contact and hope to invite you once again. So your presence is very important and your contribution is very fruitful. Thank you so much once again. Now, is Kinley there? Kinley? Kinley? Not yet. Okay, so we have Talat, Professor Talat Raza Khan from Pakistan, and let me briefly introduce her. She was also a student of Rosie's. She was my classmate at Morehouse College of Education, Scottish Centre for Education Overseas, and she retired as a full and top grade professor of English in Pakistan, in Karachi. She was designated the principal of Women's College in Karachi. Now she is a freelance ELT, English language teaching expert, and a trainer. Talat?
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, back to you.
Hello, everyone. And good evening to everyone.
Good
Thanks
evening.
a lot for inviting me to this forum.
You're welcome.
Yeah, briefly, I would like to share my opinion.
Talat, you are very close to the camera. Can you? Yeah, it's better.
Okay, so
Yeah.
there are two fields totally different from each other. That is textbook writing and materials designing. I am both. That is, I design materials and I write textbooks as well. So I can easily differentiate between these two. Okay, textbooks, no matter how many activities, how many tasks you design for them, or they are designed by the textbook writers, after some times they become stereotyped or boring for the learners, or they don't cater for the needs of all the learners, because in a classroom we have mixed ability groups, right? And we need some more materials. So that's why I give more importance to materials designing, materials production. For me, there are some basic principles, but before I discuss the principles, I would like to briefly talk about the procedure. The procedure is step one. What is step one? That is selection of the materials. From where are you going to select extra materials? That is, you are going beyond the text, okay? Beyond the textbook. So materials are selected mainly from the newspapers, from the commentaries, sports commentaries, from the advertisements, from the airport and railway announcements, and songs, etc. So, and then step two is to think of designing activities on them. That is what to do with these material, whether to give this activity or the other one. So very carefully, the material designer talk about and select and then design activities on it. Okay.
Talat,
The third, yeah.
Sorry for interrupting you. Can you just keep some distance between you and the camera? Yeah, that is better now. Yes.
Okay. So
Yeah.
the third is taking the feedback from the learners. That is very, very important. Some panelists also touched this topic. That is, it's very, very important to take the feedback from the learners, because with the learners' feedback, we go to step 4, that is bringing about changes in the materials and further improving them. Okay, then I come to the principles of materials production. Number 1 is, as one of the panelists also discussed, that is ease, comfort, that the materials should be designed in such a way that the learners should feel comfortable. Number 2 is that the learners should feel very confident. That is, very confidently they should be involved in the activities, sometimes even in the absence of the teacher, because sometimes the teacher's presence becomes very threatening, or they become shy when they commit errors. So they should be very confident. The third is personal involvement. One of the panelists also talk about it, that is, and Rosie as well, my teacher. So that is, we should go about the business of taking survey, involving the students to go for the survey, the interviews, mini interviews, and not only this, but they should also share their experiences. For instance, if there is an activity on a road accident, and the students can be asked to share their own experience if they ever witnessed any road accidents. Okay. I'm sure, and this is my experience, that they really love to involve themselves in the classroom and the activities. Okay, so my 4th point is, that is authentic language. And where do we find authentic language? By authentic language, I mean real life language, because this is the language that is used in communication. So why not ask them to go for, because sometimes in the textbooks, textbook writers rewrite something, and so it becomes unnatural, or we say non-authentic. So either it should be sub-authentic, semi-authentic, or authentic. So authentic materials are taken from, again, from newspapers, from interviews, TV, news, etc. And then the tasks are designed on them. Then another principle is, that is level, which is very important. That is whether we are designing activities for the elementary level, intermediate level, or advanced students level. So that's very important, because students, as I said earlier, that we have mixed ability groups. Age-wise, the students are different. Interest-wise, the students are different. So we have to pay attention to this as well. And then learner autonomy. That is my most favorite field, learner autonomy. That is, how much freedom do you give to the students to take the responsibility of their own learning? If they are made responsible, then they learn very quickly, very speedily. Right. Then storing of the materials. And if it is hard materials, so hard copies, then you really need to have to preserve them, to make further photocopies of them, and to paste them on the cardboards, etc. If it is soft copy, then you can just save them. Nowadays, even I use WhatsApp. by creating WhatsApp groups of the learners and of the teachers as well. Another point is piloting the materials. That's very, very important. Somebody mentioned pre-testing. I also call it piloting of the materials. And I find Naveal Grant's flow diagram very useful. And there's a flow diagram and there's a question on the top. Are the materials useful? Then there are two options, yes or no. If you think after testing them, if you think that the materials are useful, the feedback is positive, then it says use it. Okay, use the materials. Or if you have the answer no, no to are the materials useful? No. So there are 4 options and you can go for any of the 4 options. Number 1, that is adapt it. Bring about changes in your materials. Bring about changes in the task or in the activities. Number 2, replace them. Replace. Replace, that is, if you think the students were not comfortable with some of the activities, some of the tasks, then replace them easily. Okay. Number 3, omit. If you think, as someone mentioned, culture is also very important. So if you think that they are not happy with so much exposure to the culture, etc., then omit that part. And number 4 is, that is, you think of adding more. If the students say that that they found very interesting, so you add some more to it.
Okay, thank you.
The last principle is sharing. The last principle is sharing. Sharing with the teachers, because it's always materials designing is a teamwork. So you just can't keep it with you. You have to share it with others as well, with other teachers. So as I said, on WhatsApp group, we can create a group for the teachers and we can share our materials there, and we can create a group for the learners so we can share them. Thank you again for inviting me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Talat. You know, we celebrated Raksha Bandhan a couple of days ago. You know that?
Yes, yes, I know.
Yeah, we celebrated.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, we celebrated Raksha Bandhan a couple of days ago. If you were physically here today, if you were here today physically, you would have tied a Raksha or a Rakhi on my wrist, on my hand, because you are my sister from Pakistan. And I have lots of sweet.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Zeden. I'm very, very thankful to you.
Thank
and this is cultural difference, but I know what's happening, what happens in India and other countries, and I love that culture as well. So thank you for this offer.
Yeah, yeah. Please, thank you so much. So the next speaker is...
In my imagination, I think I have accepted.
Thank you, thank you. So the next speaker is Kinle there? Kinle? Can you switch off your camera, Talat?
Pardon?
Can you switch off your camera?
It is switched on.
No, but I don't know. We see you on the screen. Yeah, now it's okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. See you later. Thank you. Is Kinle there? Kinle? Kinle? No, he's not there. Okay. Our next speaker is Dr. Vijay Singh Thakur. Now let me, Vijay Kumarji, are you there? Hello? Hello? Vijay Kumarji, are you there?
Hello.
Vijay Kumarji, we are waiting for you.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, but we don't see you. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, because you know the host was muting me.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I was muted and I don't get that video.
Oh, Kiran?
Yes, let me, I have promoted you to panelist, sir. Are you able to turn on your video now? Hello.
Vijay Kumar ji?
Yes, we can see you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I can see you. Sorry for this little glitch. So let me
No problem,
let
sir.
me
No
introduce
problem.
Dr. Vijay Singh Thakur very briefly. Dr. Vijay Singh Thakur is an assistant dean, College of Arts and Applied Sciences, Dhofar University in Salalah in Oman. Dr. Vijay Singh Thakur did his PhD from Rani Durgavati University, Jabalpur, and I was his co-guide. We have been friends and colleagues and almost like brothers for several years. And he is a very kind and very lovable person. And at the same time, he is an extraordinary scholar and a very good presenter, very impressive presenter. So Vijay Kumarji, we look forward to your contribution to this particular topic. And the topic, as you know, is processes and principles of ELT materials development. So could you please give us your ideas, your personalized ideas, internalized ideas on these two focal points in 5 to 6 minutes?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you for inviting me. And thanks to all the speakers. And their contribution was very rich. So almost everything is covered. Still,
Yeah.
I'll try to, give my input on that. What I believe is that language learning materials should ideally be driven by both learning principles as well as teaching principles, rather than developed on ad hoc basis or in imitation of best-selling course books. Materials should not be random recreations from the repertoire, nor crafty clones of previously successful materials. Generally, people go for that shortcut. Instead, they should be coherent and principled applications of theories of language acquisition and development, principles of teaching, our current knowledge of how the target language is actually used, the results of systematic observation and evaluation of material in use, which is a continuous process. So, keeping this in mind, effective teaching materials are likely to be those which are designed as learning materials, not mainly as teaching materials. They should satisfy research-informed second language acquisition principles. They are informed by insights from classroom experience and observation, and they are likely to match the needs, wants, and life experience of the learners. And then quickly, there are many principles of language acquisition. I'll refer to only 2 or 3. One very important language acquisition principle is, which is a prerequisite, that the learners experience language use which is rich, which is recycled, which is meaningful, which is embodied, and which is comprehensible. How can we ensure this? We need to make sure that the materials contain a lot of spoken, written, and multimedia texts which provide extensive experience of language in purposeful use, meaningful use. We should make sure that the language the learners are exposed to is authentic. We should make sure that the language input is contextualized. We should make sure that the learners engage in a lot of interaction in relation to their input. Second principle is that learners need to be affectively and cognitively engaged in their life experience. What we need to do to achieve this principle is we need to base our materials on texts and tasks which are likely to achieve affective and cognitive engagement. So we should not simply base them on language teaching points, for example, grammar points and certain vocabulary points. We should make use of activities which get learners to deepen and articulate their feelings and thoughts. They should provoke thoughts and feelings. We need to stimulate emotive and cognitive responses through literature, controversial and provocative texts, issue-focused texts, personalization and localization. We should stimulate learners to think and feel before, whilst, and even after using the language. Principle 3 is learners need opportunities to use the language for contextualized and purposeful communication. How can we do this? By providing many opportunities for the learners to produce language in order to achieve intended outcomes. We should make sure that output activities are designed so that the learners are using language rather than just practicing specified features related to that language input. We need to design output activities so that they help learners to develop their ability to communicate fluently, accurately, appropriately, and effectively. We need to make sure that the output activities are fully contextualized, and we should maximize opportunities for learner-to-learner communicative interaction. And in concluding, I would say that the teaching materials would be a lot more effective if they were driven by the principles of acquisition. When developing classroom materials, we should also consider principles of language teaching, not only learning. And the main teaching principle can be summed up in that the teaching should meet the needs and wants of the learners. From this, our most important material development principle should be that materials need to be written in such a way that the teacher can make use of them as a resource and not have to follow them as a script. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Thakur, for your wonderful and a very insightful contribution to the topic on hand. So now, is Rahul there? Rahul and Pallavi and Kiran?
Yes, I'm here.
Rahul and Pallavi are not there?
Miss Pallavi Desai, she's also, I can see her.
I'm here, sir. I'm here.
Okay, so who is handling questions and answers? Kiran, are you?
Yes.
Okay, so now, friends, thank you very much for your contribution. We cannot thank enough all the panelists and the external experts for their wonderful, very insightful contribution to this particular topic. It was a very enlightening discussion of the issues involved in materials development, materials creation. Now, the session is open for questions and answers. So please try to make your questions as brief as possible. And I would request the panelists and the experts to answer the questions as quickly, as briefly as they can. Over to you, Kiran.
Yes. So I've already got a few questions in question and answers section here. So the first question is from Mr. Bhupendra Mahajan, and he asks, when the textbooks are produced for, let's say, Indian students, why is foreign literature included in it?
Okay, who would like to answer this question? Dr. Pradhan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm very much there.
Dr. Pradhan, Dr. V.T. Patil, and
Yes.
Yes, I'm very much there.
All three of you are there. Rosie is there. So
they're still here.
Yeah. Rosie, would you like to answer this? Why is literature included?
Yeah, so when the textbooks are produced for Indian students, why is foreign literature included in it?
Okay, foreign literature. Yeah. Who would like to answer this question? Dr. Pradhan?
Yes,
Can
yes,
I-
it is.
Can I
As we
comment on
say,
this, sir?
English is not just an Indian language. English is a world global language, and the children should get a feeling of what is the authentic material in that language. That is the first thing. So English is not just an not just Indian language. Nowadays we say that it's also an Indian language, but basically it's a foreign tongue, and the children should be able to know the authentic material which is written by the British writers, American writers, or the other countries. And that kind of feeling the children should get. That is the major intention in having some literature from the different countries. But at the same time, we try to maintain a balance, like not only Indian, but we have British writers as well as American writers.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Pradhan. Vijay Kumarji would like to say something.
No, I would add to what Dr. Pradhan has said. Why not we expand the variety? Why not different varieties of English for a richer exposure? There is no harm in that.
And basically we say that it's a global
Indian English or Indian literature.
Basically,
Why
it's
not?
a global language. It's a global language. The feeling of global language the children should get.
Yeah, and why not different varieties?
Yes.
It enriches. The input will be an extended input.
Okay. Okay.
I
Thank you
mean,
very much.
Surely there are writers using English not only from UK, America, Australia. It must be South Africa must be producing them, and there's an awful lot of stuff in translation which could be used. So maybe, since English is a global language, and then we are living in a global village, we should make. I'm reading something called Fortress Besieged, which is a Chinese novel, classical novel, and it's being translated into English very, very well, very interesting. And I can think of lots of South African and other stuff. But anyway, yeah, I think as much variety as possible, and then maybe compare the Englishes. I also think this applies to speaking, and I think it's even as important, if not more, in speaking, because the varieties of spoken English vary so widely that they really need to, students need to be exposed to them, particularly at the higher levels. I think maybe not as beginners. And anyway, that's enough from me, right?
Thank you very much. Back to you, Kiran.
Yeah. So another question from Mr. Sanjeev Singhal. How often do you revive or change the contents of textbooks to develop learners' competency according to global needs, changing global needs?
Okay, Viti, would you like to address this question, Viti?
I feel this question is exactly contradictory to the earlier one. Why not only Indian, but here the speaker is expecting that why not from the other countries as well? I feel that we should go for the authentic material, and the children are not just going to be there in India. They are the world citizens, and maybe, we don't know, in future they might have to go abroad to learn or for this for settlement and all such things. So let the children get a feeling of what's happening as far as the language is concerned and literature is concerned throughout the world. At least a sample piece of it is very, very important, if not the whole. And at one point, we in the board thought of having another English, one British English and the other one American English. So we thought of having two courses at the secondary level, one about say giving the samples of American English completely, and the other one of British English. But somehow the force is there that we also should consider American English as a separate part. So that's how I would look at it.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question, and probably we can direct that question to Professor Dr. Kinley if he's there from Bhutan.
Yes, so the next question is from Sheikh Chan Basha. If teachers will not use idiomatic expressions in classroom, how would children learn them? I think this was, some comment made earlier in the discussion, and this is a pointed question to that discussion point.
Yeah, Kinley, are you there, Kinley? Oh, unfortunately, we couldn't get the Bhutanese perspective.
I feel regarding the idiomatic use of language, I feel that at least up to the secondary level, they should get a feeling of idiomatic language, no doubt. But at the same time, let us not create that fear or phobia in their minds that it's difficult, it's challenging, it's not possible. So to be plain and simple in use of English is more important to begin with, as a foundation part of it, rather than to go for the idiomatic use of the language. Maybe at a certain later stage, when they offer English as a special subject, then maybe they can go for that. Maybe at the secondary level, some sample here and there, it's okay. But I don't think that it can be our major objective of asking the children to use idiomatic language or to learn idiomatic language. That's what I feel.
Okay. I think this particular panel discussion example. Hello. I think particular panel discussion is an example because I hope you listened very carefully to Rosie's talk. She never used any idiomatic expressions. Her English is living English. Her English is not bookish English. Her English is not dead English. Occasionally, we can use an idiom here and there. But when you listen to native speakers, the so-called native speakers of the English language, you realize that they don't use so many idioms and phrases in their talk. In fact, it is Indian and Pakistanis and Sri Lankans and Nepalese who are very fond of using idioms after idioms after idioms. Idioms are not useless, they are useful, but we should use them very wisely and judiciously. Thank you very much. Yes. Next question. We can take one question maybe or two. That's it.
I think Rosemary wants to add something.
Rosie?
Yeah, I would like to say that I think understanding idiom is more important than producing it. And I think that if it comes up in the class and the learners encounter it or introduce it or it's a problem, well, the teacher and they have to explore together. And we all have Google Translate now, which is available. So if we don't understand it, we check it and find out together, teacher and students or collaboratively. But I think actually nobody has to use idiomatic language if they're speaking in their second language. It's enough just to use, the basics until we get higher up.
Absolutely.
That's my view. Yeah,
I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much. Yes. Next.
Yes. So another question: how can we address English learning challenges with a common textbook for a classroom full of students who have varied learning levels? And another similar question: which teaching method is suitable for multi-grade classroom?
Yes.
Viti, would you like to address this?
Yes.
Viti or
yeah. So for slow learners or
Vijay Kumarji.
Yeah.
Vijay Kumarji.
Yes, sir. For slow learners or mixed ability learners, we set different types of exercises and we ask them to take their own time and prepare for the answers or their own expressions over the topics. So repetition drill, then expressing the same material in a different way. So we can provide help to these learners.
Okay, thank you, Kiran. We can take one more question, last question. because already 7:30, nearly 7:30. So we've been together for 2.5 hours. And I'm sure people have other things to do. So we can have one more question, last question.
Okay, the last question is from Meenu Jasdanwala. Should religious stories be part of the textbooks?
Yeah.
If yes, why? If not, why not?
Vijay Kumarji, would you like to throw light on this? Or
Yeah,
Darshan?
there is no harm in, using religious stories. But only fear is sometimes it gets politicized.
Absolutely, yes.
So better to avoid it.
Right. Rosie, would you like to say something?
Who, me?
Yes, would you like to?
Well, I'm not very religious, but no, I think you need to be very careful about that. I mean, in a UK school, there has to be tolerance of different religions, but I agree. I agree with, from Thakur, it can become politicized and it can, no, I would say, okay, we talk about it, but we'll use, if you want to use a religious story, can you do it in a group that would like to do it only, or do it outside? Yeah, I wanted to say, oh, I've forgotten. What was the previous question? It was about
literature?
No, never mind. Forget it. Sorry. I wanted to say something
Kiran,
about.
what was the question, Kiran?
About the religious sort of things?
No, the one before.
Before that.
Just a minute. Idiomatic expressions?
Yeah.
No.
Somebody,
never mind.
somebody was asking
okay.
about, larger classes and
Which teaching method is suitable for multi-grade?
Right, for different methods, different levels. Yeah. Well, you have to do task-based learning, and you have to vary the task, and to some extent, the students choose which one they do, or alternatively, you delegate. They use this one or that one, and you make the tasks of different levels of difficulty. I think that, and then you can divide your groups into groups of the same level, but the top level, the lower level, etc. Or you can have mixed ability, and I think the student should be involved in deciding which they're going to do for which task sometimes. But I know all this requires a huge amount of demand on the teacher for organization and assessment, not formal assessment, informal assessment. And our teachers need a lot of help to do it. It's not easy. I mean, I suffer. I teach very mixed levels. I have elementary, and I've got people who've spent 14 years learning English together. And I have small classes, but getting them to work together can be extremely difficult. Remember translanguaging. I don't know what the policy is, and we've not talked about it at all, but use of the mother tongue and the other languages can sometimes be a bit useful to scaffold the students who are struggling. Okay, sorry, that's the answer for me. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah,
what I feel is that we have recommended pair and group activities in the textbook. They are mainly for considering the mixed ability group in the class. So we don't address the class as a whole, but we divide them in certain groups, maybe one or two having good ability in them, or maybe of the same ability. But then in a group, they can learn with their own pace, and then they can get used to it. So it depends on what methodology teacher follows, whether the teacher addresses to the whole class at a time, or whether the comfortable groups are made and purposefully made, then they can be addressed in a different manner. And so the problem won't remain. That's what we feel, and that's what we tried from our texts.
Thank you so much.
Can I add that I think self-evaluation of the group after they've done the task, they have to evaluate themselves and how they did and what they learned, and that is very useful.
Sure.
Yeah,
sure,
absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So back to you, Kiran, Pallavi.
Yes, may I request Ms. Pallavi Desai to take it over?
Yes, thank you, Kiran. Thank
We
you.
need to take, we need to take a picture as well.
Right, so I would request all of you to turn on your cameras, the panelists and the global experts, and the hosts of
Photograph.
Camera.
Yeah, just switch on the video.
Oh, don't know where it is.
No, yours is already on.
Oh, mine's on. Okay.
Permission is not.
We
Viti
see you.
Patil.
Test off.
You have disappeared,
Dr.
Rosie. You
Viti
not see.
Patil.
Yeah.
Do you see everybody?
It
Viti
stopped.
Patil.
It stopped. Permission is not.
On your camera.
VT Patil,
Dr.
Mahaj,
Viti.
Yeah.
and other external
Sahib
panelists.
Rao. Yes, yes.
Yes, sir.
We are out. Permission is not given.
Talat,
yeah.
We are out already.
VT should get permission, should be allowed to share the video.
I was muted.
Yeah, regulation.
I'm sorry, I'm driving right at the moment.
Kiran, sir, please video, allow Viti Patil to put on video. Yes, I think yes.
I am visible now. Yes.
Yes, now you are visible.
Yeah, thanks.
You were invisible there, but then the sound was there.
He is the Harry Potter boy.
Your voice was present. Yes.
Yes. All is not seen.
Yeah.
Now all are there on screen. Thank you.
Taken a picture already?
Yeah, I'll take it now. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Smile.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just before, yes, sir, thank you. Just before I move on to propose a vote of thanks, I have posted a link in the chat box. I request all of you to please click on it and give us your feedback so that we can keep improving our logistics and content, basically. Okay, moving to the vote of thanks. On behalf of ELTAI Pune chapter, I extend my sincere gratitude to the moderator and the panelists first for a very engaging panel session. Thank you. We greatly appreciate the contribution of the global experts for their really expert comments. They were really enlightening, and I think all of us got to learn a lot. It was indeed a pleasure to have all of you here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very
much. Thank you, Rosie. Thank you, Dr.
Professor Zidane Patil, for all the efforts you have taken, and thank you, ELTAI members, for this opportunity.
We thank Dr. Dhiravit, Dr. Darshan, then Dr. Rosemary Douglas, and Motikala Subba Devan, Talat Raza Khan, Vijay Singh Thakur. We thank
my teacher, Professor Sridhar Gokhale also. He is also there.
Oh,
I must thank him for being here.
Oh, I didn't know he was there. Good, good.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, can we log out?
He's there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you to everyone else. Thank you to Zidane Patil, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for making this opportunity available to us.
Sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thanks.
I'm
Bye-bye.
leaving.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Me too. Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.